Welcome to Grade 1 View, the podcast for future CRNAs by future CRNAs, a partnership between AANA and Beyond the Mask.
Whether you're about to graduate from a nurse anesthesia program, trying to get accepted to nursing school, or you're somewhere in between,
this podcast is a resource and safe space for all things nurse anesthesia.
We're your Season 2 host team. I'm Levi Davis.
I'm Kelsey Muir.
I'm Mackenzie Lane.
And I'm Nicholas Alexander. So grab your Mac or your Miller, turn up your flows, and get ready, because this is Grade 1 View. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Grade 1 View podcast. I'm Nicholas, and I'm joined again with Kelsey. And today we have a very special guest, Tarcisio Gois dos Santos, an international nurse and first-generation college graduate from Brazil, joining us all the way from Rochester, Minnesota. In 2022, nearly one-third of the U.S. hospitals reported hiring nurses educated outside of the United States. As workforce shortages persist, the face of our profession is evolving, and so are the stories behind it. Today, we have the privilege of talking with Tar about his journey from Brazil to becoming an SRNA at Mayo Clinic, and what it means to contribute to a profession that increasingly depends on international talent. Tar, we are so grateful to have you here. Welcome to the Grade 1 View.
Yes, hello.
Hi, hello. Thank you, guys. I want to say, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you for having me and to allow me to share a little bit of my story with you and with other nurses across the U.S. So I'm really, really happy to be here with you.
Well, we're so excited to have you because you have such a cool story to tell us. So to kind of kick us off, I think really we need to start at the beginning. So can you walk us through your journey from immigrating to the U.S. from Brazil to becoming an SRNA and maybe share some of those pivotal moments along your path?
Of course, yeah. I'll be glad to walk you through my journey, a little bit of my story. So I think I have to begin with the beginning, right? As you guys said, I'm from Brazil. I'm actually from the smallest state in Brazil. And I grew up there in a small village. Think about probably 1,000 people in this village, a small town. My mother is a teacher, and she always taught us how education was really important. So I kind of grew up with this idea of wanting more and not, letting the environment that I was living in just to limit myself. So I went to nursing school. I started in 2013. Before that, I was living in this town. I worked as a cashier at a small supermarket to pay for my English classes. That's how I learned English when I was probably like 17. So I took private English classes for 2 years and then First of all, I applied to law and then I got in started and I was like, no, that's not for me. So I switched to nursing. And then 1.5 years into the program, I had the opportunity to travel to the United States as an international student to study here. So that's how I found out about advanced practice nursing here in the US. And when I found out about CRNAs, and that became my dream. So that experience really planted that seed. And I saw that nurses here had great autonomy, and for the first time, I learned about nurse anesthesia. So after I graduated, I went back to Brazil in 2016, and after I graduated, I started working there. So at the peak of COVID, I was an ER nurse back in Brazil, but still with a goal in mind of coming back to the US and starting my CRNA education and eventually becoming a CRNA. So I moved to the US in 2022. I did all my immigration process from Brazil. And then in 2022, I moved to Maryland, started working in the emergency department there. And I switched to a cardiac surgical ICU. And I applied to CRNA school and I was lucky to get in the first cycle of applications. And I started my program last year in September at Mayo Clinic. And I'm really happy. That was a dream come true. It was a long journey, like summarizing, that was what happened, but people might think it was something easy, but it's not easy at all. It took me 10 to 11 years for this dream to come true. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. You said 2013 is when you started your private English classes. So that's a 13-year journey right there
Yeah.
in itself, just to be where you're at today. So that's really impressive. Life would have looked a little bit different, huh, if you had done law, right?
I know, I know. I actually got into law because I have relatives who are lawyers, and the influence of family kind of was what made me go that route. And then after that, I was like, no, that's probably not for me. I'm gonna try to do something that I enjoy. So I started nursing and I fell in love with it. And I also have two sisters who are also nurses. So it's me and my two sisters just in the healthcare field, enjoying it. And I'm the only one who moved outside of Brazil, though. I'm the only one that decided to have an international career. I always had the support of my family, which was great and really important, fundamental for me.
That's nice. I think it's awesome to just have some other nurses in the family with you. Were they nurses before you or after you?
So they started as nurse techs, and I was the first one who got a higher education in nursing. They started in the as nurse techs, and then they went to school to undergrad for nursing. But I was the first one graduating out of a higher education program. But yeah, it's nice to have nurses in the family. You kind of get to share a little bit of the goods and bads, and the good moments and the frustrations too. So I mean, we all know that nursing is great, but we all know that there are bad days and good days, and having somebody that
Absolutely.
understands you, it's really good.
Yeah, someone to vent your frustrations to for
I
sure.
know, yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
that kind of leads us into our next question here, just talking about differences in nursing education in comparison from Brazil to here. Did your sisters actually do then their education over there, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Can you maybe speak a little bit about that, the differences?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question because I had the opportunity to study in Brazil. I got my education back home, all in Portuguese. I didn't have any education in English except for my private English classes. And in the middle of my program, I came here. I was granted a scholarship to study here for 1 year and a half, and I got to experience a little bit of a difference in education. I would say that the biggest difference is that nursing in Brazil, the focus is a little different, right? Nurses in Brazil have a little bit of a different scope. So we kind of focus on different things during our education, but it's really strong academically. It's very focused on building like a deep scientific foundation. We spend a lot of time studying like everything, the physiology, pathophysiology, pharm, and all of that. But we also spend a lot of time studying research. So we have to publish a manuscript by the end of the program too. So I got to
Wow.
experience that research, a lot of research. I went to a public university, very competitive, very rigorous. And then I came to the States and I noticed the big difference was how much emphasis is placed here in clinical autonomy and decision making. Here, the nurses are trained not to just understand like the theory, but how to actively apply like more complex concepts in clinical environments. So that's a little more different. Like the critical thinking aspect of it, I feel like here is way more stimulated than back home, where you have the clinical knowledge, but once you graduate, you kind of don't get to apply everything you know. So another major difference is the advanced practice roles that we have here in the US. We don't have it back home. And those roles don't exist back in Brazil, which kind of sparked a light in me. I was like, well, I think I want to do that. So when I went back in 2016 after spending my time here in the US, I just went back with this mentality of, oh, I want to be the best nurse that I can be, so I can go back to the States and become a CRNA. So I took the opportunity to be involved in school. I was a tutor for fundamentals of nursing, I think for 2 years. I was in research groups. I published papers. I was in other academic groups anything I could do, I was doing to improve and to just have a better foundation to become a good nurse. Even if I wasn't, if I ended up not coming to the US, I wanted to be the best nurse that I can be. So I would say that Brazil has a really, really strong academic and scientific foundation in nursing. But the US gave me the opportunity to expand more into autonomy, and, it made me grow as a professional as well.
Holy cow. I
Mhm.
feel like inadequate right now. I feel like all the time that you have dedicated to this journey is very impressive.
It's a 5-year program, so it's really long. For me, it took 6.5 years because I came to the States and spent 1 year and a half. I did research at Columbia University when I was here. First, I went to Michigan, and I was at Wayne State University for 1 year, and then I went to New York, and I did some research at Columbia University. So it was a really good opportunity that opened my horizons, especially when I went back to Brazil. And I just realized that I could do anything I wanted to do after I came here. And you mature up so much after you have the experience to go to another country and to live other reality when you are 21. I was 21 at that time, and that I was by myself here. My family was all back home, so that was an opportunity for me just to grow as a person, as a human being, and also as a nursing student, right? That was a really good experience.
Yeah, one thing I just love that you said is it wasn't about like even if you didn't become a CRNA, you just wanted to be a great nurse. Like you just wanted to be excellent at what you did. And I just think that's incredible. I think someone that is putting in that much work is going to make you just everything we do as a CRNA comes from our skills and what we build as a nurse. And it sounds like you have just an incredible foundation that you built. And honestly, 10 years is a long time to keep working for this. And I'm so impressed that you were able to keep it up because that is a long, long time to just be hustling.
I know, and I always try to stay positive because there's so much that happens that fall out of your of your hands. I mean, some things that you can do and some things that it's not up to you. And 10 years, you said, is a long, long time. And I feel like people are very like in the moment. They want things to happen so fast, and they sometimes are not. They don't want to put up the work, and things don't happen all of a sudden for some people. Some people will have different paths. And I had to understand that, especially being an internationally educated nurse coming to the US, I understood that my journey was not going to be the same as somebody who was here. I was building my life from scratch. And then, the first thing was having to go back to Brazil, right? After being in the US for 1 year and a half. I always thought, well, I could have stayed, but could I stay? No, I want to go back. I want to, be able to graduate. I want to be able to come back to the United States doing the right thing and, using nursing, which is something that I love to do as what's guiding me through this journey, what's opening the doors for me. So I just thought about, I just kept positive and I just thought about, oh, this is going to happen one day. I cannot give up and I have to keep pushing through and it will eventually happen. And, here I am. So it's a long time, but, it paid off. It's paying off.
Fair to say, it sounds like you are a glass half full type person, which I really appreciate. So I love that.
Try to be.
And then you mentioned kind of like going back, kind of starting from scratch. Can you kind of touch on any barriers that you felt moving from Brazil to the United States? Anything, barriers with licensures, visas, work authorizations?
Yeah, absolutely. That was honestly one of the hardest parts of this journey. As I said, people don't usually think about everything that goes on and when it comes to like immigrating and applying to a graduate school, which is so competitive. Nowadays it's getting way more competitive every year. So starting from the licensure process alone was a long and very demanding process. So we have to start by getting our credentials validated. So I graduated, and then there is a company in the US that goes over your transcript and will compare with the US curriculum and see if it's equivalent or not. So that alone took me about 8 months with just sending signatures and sending documents. And the documents can only be sent through the school directly. And some schools don't want to do it. And, it takes a long time. So it took me 8 months. And then after that, you also have to take an English proficiency exam. So I had to do that as well. And then I had to take the NCLEX. I don't know if any of you know, but in Brazil, once you graduate, you just apply for your license and you're good to go. You get your license. You don't have to take any exam. And for me, having to take the NCLEX 3 years out of nursing school, that was a challenge. I had to, learn the test taking techniques. I had to learn how you guys think when it comes to like bedside nursing. As I said, is a little difference. We are a little bit more focused on management, nursing management, and in the US it's more bedside, so you're the one doing, right? So I had to take the NCLEX, pass the NCLEX, and then you have to apply for your visa. After you apply for your visa, then you have to interview. So I had to travel. Years ago, the NCLEX could not be done in Brazil. People would have to come to the States to take it here. But
Oh my
thank God,
gosh.
yeah, when I did it, I travel. I still had to travel to Sao Paulo. It's like a 3-hour flight to take the NCLEX. So if I failed, I would have to do it again. So, some other things that come into play with that. And then I passed that, but then you start the immigration process, and that takes a long time as well, because you have to, just go over all the physical examination and stuff. So, go to the doctors and stuff like that and have the interview. And that falls out of your hands a little bit, because it's not more up to you at this point. You have to let things just happen, and it's up to somebody else to go and process everything. So that took a little bit of time. And also coming to the States in 2022, it was a little challenging. First, you're leaving your family behind, right? So I left my family behind. I was chasing this dream of coming to the States. So I came with my husband, but my mom, my sister, my father, everybody's back home. And then you have to start your life from scratch. So I had to start everything from scratch. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. I had to buy here. So, that's the financial part of it that sometimes you can struggle a little bit. And then you have to start working as a nurse in a complete different kind of approach in a second language, which I did not have education on. So I had to learn all the terminology in healthcare, in the ER, which is a fast-paced environment, all the emergencies happening. And you're like, oh my God, I have to be confident. I have to be on top of my game. I have to, I cannot slack. I have to be on top of everything. So, you will end up putting a lot of pressure on yourself to excel, to be good, especially English not being your first language. But I've always been more on the confidence side, even if I knew that I was going to have failures. And I understood that was part of the process. I always had that in my mind. I was like, there is no perfect human being, and I am far from it. Okay. But I understand that, the process, that's the process. You make mistakes and you learn from them. But it is a challenge, and not everybody take that at the same way. Not everybody approaches that in the same way. Right. But, you grow from all those challenges. You learn how to manage those challenges. And I think that that's the beauty of it, is being able to recognize where your weak points are, and just, navigate those challenges and become stronger as you living that journey. And I'm happy I had people that helped me. I made friends, which was something that I was scared as like a 30, I was 29, 30 when I got here. And I was scared I was not going to be able to make friends, because I'm not a teenager anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'm coming here to work. I'm not coming here to go to school and make friends
Listen,
at school.
you are in the right company right now, my friend. We are millennials.
Yeah.
We have actually talked about this at length, about how, anxiety producing it is, being just a slightly older, or that next up generation, and having to start from scratch. So
I know.
I
Yeah.
can only imagine.
It's
Yeah,
really daunting.
It is.
I moved to Arizona at 32, and I didn't have any friends or family down here. And that, honestly, I think that was my biggest fear, is I'm like, I'm going to be so alone. Like, I was like, I want to be cool. And it was like everything back to high school, where I was like, I want to be cool. I want people to like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just love your attitude. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
just so positive, and
I know.
I had to be, because I've always been this kind of person back home, and I've never been more in the I've been shy before when I was a teenager, but then I think that a lot of that came when I was learning English. I changed the way I approach things, because if I wanted to learn, I would have to not be shy and not be afraid of making mistakes, because that's how you learn. And then when I came here to the US, I was asking my American friends to correct me if I said anything wrong, which my English is far from perfect. But I was like, oh yeah, you have to correct me. I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm not going to be embarrassed. Please do, because that's how I'm going to improve. So I think that I took that for everything in my life after that. So I was like, if you make mistakes, that's okay. You're going to improve. And making friends, it's a process as well. So I was able to, thank God, everywhere I went, like every hospital I went, I made really great friends that up to this day I have contact with. And I've been meeting new people as I go, like CRNA school now. I part of the diversity CRNA group that just shares journeys of many, marginalized nurses that are now in CRNA school or in the process of applying. So it's been a blessing to be able to have the opportunity to meet so many people that just bring different perspectives in life. And I'm glad to, also share mine with them.
You've touched on a lot of really important issues that we have actually spoken about in previous episodes. And I think what I am kind of like gathering to, which I absolutely love, and I think if there's any SRNAs out there, it's listening, or hopefully future SRNAs and just RNs currently, the big takeaway I think is get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So you have to put yourself in those shoes, I think, to just grow as a human, obviously to grow as a nurse, I think, definitely, and to become a good CRNA, I think that's necessary as well. But I think those are really important. And I was writing down some notes, but like recognizing your weaknesses, I think is also just, it's so huge. And I'm really inspired right now. I feel like I want to go out either and run a marathon or like go read the whole like Nagelhout book again. I don't really know. It's going one or two ways, but anyway.
I want to be best friends with you.
I know that too. So
yes, we can.
Even like what you said is like you expected challenges, and just like, again, anyone listening, going into this, there are going to be hard times, but just be resilient. Always have that goal in mind of finishing CRNA school and just keep pushing through it. Because if you want it bad enough, like you're going to do anything to kind of get there. So
yeah.
And one thing I think is really important to touch on is just understand that your journey is unique and you bring something to the table that is unique and special. Never compare yourself to others, which I think it's something that's kind of hard to do, especially when you are competing with people to get into the program, right? And after you're in the program, you also tend to compare yourself to other people and think less of yourself. But don't think like that. Always think that you have something to bring to the table, and always think that you are more than enough. Because like that, you're going to be able to go through challenges in a way more confident way, and take more of a confident approach to your challenges and how you navigate through them, because as I said, no path is the same as yours. And you just, some people might had way easier than you had to go through some situations in your life. But everybody's special. Not saying that other people are not as special, but everybody has their own challenges and their different way to deal and to handle things. So just keep that in mind.
Well, I think they always say it like takes a village, right, to do anything in life. So is there someone that kind of has helped to mentor you or support you through this journey, or whether that is in the CRNA or anesthesia community or outside of that?
So when I came to the US and I found out about CRNAs, one way that I kept myself motivated to not deviate from my goal, because I didn't know anybody at the time that was a CRNA that I could keep in touch with, was I would be like, oh, I'm not very motivated today. Let me go to YouTube and watch a day in the life of a CRNA. And then after watching that for 15 minutes, I was refreshed. And I was back to my thought process again of that's what I want. But then after I got here, I started meeting some new people on Instagram mainly. And but I think I was my main motivator through that journey. I think I was always researching about the process. I was always researching about the prerequisites and what I needed to do to be a strong candidate. But of course, along the way, I met great people that really helped me. First, I had the opportunity to attend to one of the diversity CRNA events in Pittsburgh in 2023, and I met Dr. Lena Gold.
We interviewed her, actually.
I listened to the podcast, and I
She's
love
phenomenal.
She is phenomenal, and her story is just so inspirational, and I felt really inspired by her story, and just the way that she, just gives back to not only the profession, but for marginalized nurses that, wanna be CRNAs, become CRNAs. And there I also met great people. I met a really good friend of mine that today attends to a school as well, as Ellen Garcia. He really helped me with my process, with getting ready for the interview, and he was like always pushing me, and just being really helpful throughout this process. And then this year after I got in, I went to Arizona. I met Nicolas there. So it's just been a great journey for me when it comes to all this, this process of applying and starting. And along the way, I've had like many people that really inspired me. I also met another great CRNA that she lives in Texas, and she really helped me. I started talking to her when I was back in Brazil, and I would always ask, "Hey, how do you do this? Can you guys really do that?" And just I was just interested about the profession overall, and having somebody that's like more close to you just made that dream feel closer and feel more achievable. And some small things just make a difference when you are in this process. But it all started back then in 2014, and I had to have a motivator, which was me. And then when I came here, everything just added up, and just kept pushing me to pursue that dream and go ahead and apply.
Wow. Well, I'm just astounded. So I feel like I'm like gobsmacked because I feel like so undermotivated here. I thought I was a motivated person, but you definitely take the cake for sure.
Thank you. You gotta be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to kind of tell us about your application process to nurse anesthesia school?
Yes, sure. So my application process, I would say, it doesn't start when you start applying, right? I think everybody kind of knows that if you had applied already. For me, started all the way back when I went back to Brazil to take those courses and get involved in school and try to get good grades, and just try to be a good student, and have that good, outstanding track record. It is a little hard being an international nurse, though, because the way the grading system works is way different than the US. So when you transfer your transcript, your curriculum, and your GPA might not, match the same, and the rigor might not be looked at as the same. But when I came here, I started in the ER, and I already knew what I needed to do in order to apply. So everything that I did was kind of like thought out, everything was planned, and I knew how much time I would have to spend doing something, and then when I would have to switch to the ICU to get that experience under my back to be able to apply. So everything was kind of calculated even back before I got to the States. I usually tell people that ask me, I planned everything, I think 10 years ahead. So I knew I was going to be a CRNA by 2020 something. I had that in mind, and people are like, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" I don't know. I just kept that in mind. I kept doing what I needed to do. So I came
You
here.
spoke it into existence. That's what you
I
did.
know. Yes. I was never negative. I never thought that I wouldn't be able to get it. I always knew that this was going to happen. Of course, sometimes things might not work as you plan, but you have to learn how to navigate, right? But I just kept that in the back of my mind, and I was like, well, that's going to happen. I mean, it's God's plan. I'm just going to have to be patient. So I came here. I started nursing school in 2013. So when I started applying, my prereqs was kind of old. I'm like, oh my God, I have to start applying now. Otherwise, schools are going to have ask me to retake the classes and all of that. So I had to retake 2 classes. So I think I took biochemistry, and I also took physiology, advanced physiology. I took all my certifications. I started in the ICU. I worked for 9 months in the emergency department, and then I switched to a cardiac surgical ICU. And that was a dream because I always wanted to be a critical care nurse. But in Brazil, you don't apply to the position. You apply to the hospital, and the hospital sends you where they need. So they sent me to
Mm.
the ER, and I was like, no, I want to go to the ICU because I have the goal of becoming a CRNA. They were like, no, you're going to the ER. That's where we need you. So I stay there. And then here, because my company, when they brought me here, they also, sent me to a specialty that I had experience with. So that was the ER. But because I knew I wanted to go to CRNA school, I switched to the ICU, and I had the opportunity to, just to go up on the professional ladder, and I became a preceptor. I became a super user. I was taking the sickest assignments. I was part of committees at that unit, which I was going to be a charge nurse before I got in. They were going to train me for that. And once they found out that I got in, they were like, maybe, yeah, okay, go to CRNA school. We don't need to train you for charge. But, it's just having the opportunity of living this new life and just thinking back of, oh my God, I come from a complete different reality when it comes to nursing and autonomy. I never thought, I always thought that I could, but when you think about it, it's like, it's a big, big step. Like, now you're taking the sickest assignments in one of the best hospitals in the world, and you now get to, deal with the best like technology, work with the best providers, with the smartest nurses, and you are probably one of them as well. So I felt like I belonged all the time, right? I felt like I belonged there. I never felt like I was an imposter. And as I said, I always thought that I was more than enough for the job, and that I had what it takes to, get the job done. 1 year after I was in the ICU, I applied, and I applied to 8 schools, and I
Wow.
got interview for 2 schools because, as I said, when we transfer, the GPA
Yeah.
doesn't reflect, and there is no way for schools in the United States to tell which international schools are rigorous or which ones are not. So they look at your GPA, and automatically they're like, no, this one is not. No, we're not interviewing this one. We're not interviewing this one. I try to focus more on schools that had more of a holistic approach to applications, because I knew that would be a problem. But at the same time, I wanted to apply to the schools that were more rigorous and had a more like difficult application process, because I wanted to get the feedback from them. I
Yeah.
understood that at the first year of applications, I probably would not be accepted, but I wanted that experience to be able to get the feedback and apply for the next years. But I also told myself that the first school that interviewed me, I was gonna get the spot. That spot was mine, and I
Yeah.
told myself I just need one moment to shine, and that's what happened. I got the
That's
interview
so exciting.
here at Mayo, and I came here and I got the spot, and I got accepted.
Now, did you have to take the GREs?
No, I did not have to take the GRE because I applied to schools that didn't require the GRE. I
Okay.
told myself that if that's what I needed to do, I would. I took the CCRN, I took the CSC, I took all the PALs and all that, all the certifications. And I kind of pushed back on the GRE a little more. I was like, well, if I need to take the GRE, that's going to be the last thing that I'm going to do. I think this test doesn't reflect as much the skills, and it might be a little harder for international nurses because English is not their primary language. But people can do it, and I told myself that if I needed to do, I would. But thank God I didn't have to.
Tar, listen, English is my primary language, and there's no way I would have crushed the GRE by any means. So if I'm being flat out honest, I was in the same boat as you in terms of the schools. I was very calculated in particular about the schools that I was applying to. I wanted the ones that did not have the GREs as a mandatory requirement.
Yeah.
Um,
You got to be smart, right? You got to, make the system work in your favor. So I applied to all the schools that didn't require the GRE, and I was like, oh my God, am I going to run out of options that I'm going to have to do? And even if I didn't apply to schools that required the GRE, what I thought was, well, if the schools don't offer me an interview, I'm going to have to do something else to stand out, because nowadays people have everything. It doesn't mean that because you check all those boxes that you're going to be interviewed. So is one thing that some people don't understand, especially international nurses, is that having the requirements, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be invited for an interview. And that's what makes things so much difficult, because you don't know what they want, right? So it's difficult to tell them a recipe. There is no recipe for this. I mean, the recipe that you can get is what the website says that you have to have, but there is something that has to spark for them to call you for that interview. I don't know what was the thing for me, but I guess like my story so far, coming from another country and being able to manage the language barriers, like transitioning to another healthcare environment, was what made them choose me and pick me. And also interviewing for a school that had a more of a holistic approach to the application process and that really values the human being behind that student badge was something that really also helped me to stand in this position today. So try to work in your favor. Don't apply to schools just for the sake of having a number of applications. Try to look for that school that speaks to you a little bit more too. You also choosing that school. It's not just because you want to be a CRNA, you're going anywhere possible, right? You want to be somewhere that you're going to enjoy, that is going to, support you along the way. Because at the end of the day, it's 3 years that it's already stressful enough by itself. You don't want to make things way worse than they have to be. And, you might get frustrated. You also investing money. You're investing a lifetime, time away from a family, from a lot of things. So try to calculate all the steps that you're going to take throughout your journey and in the application process too, so that you can make your life a little easier.
Absolutely.
So now that you've kind of gone through these steps, how do you feel like schools and organizations can better support like international SRNAs?
I honestly think that it's something that needs to be approached it differently when it comes to the schools nowadays. As I said, it's getting way more competitive. I've seen some other international nurses that got accepted. I feel like schools are doing way better than back in the day when it comes to like including diversity and international nurses in their program. But I think the first step is recognizing that international nurses, they carry like additional burdens, right? It's that goes beyond academics, right? But it's not just about like learning material. Oh, is this nurse going to be smart enough to pass boards at the first time? Is this nurse going to be able to handle the content? But we have to go through a lot into like adapting to a new culture, into a new language and healthcare system, that this tells a lot about our resilience and how much pressure we can take. And one big issue, as I said, was like the GPA, how the GPA is interpreted here. So I went to a very rigorous university. I was taking like the basic courses with med students, and we had our passing grade was 5 out of 10, and people were still failing. I took pharm, I took anatomy, I took physiology with med students. And that's not something that they know when they see our curriculum, right? They don't know that. So how can they try to compare without having to just cut us off of that list by seeing our GPA, right? So I think that this should be something that they could do when they see an international applicant, to like, oh, let me see if I can, read their essay at least and see how challenged the life was for them, right? Give them an opportunity to at least read the essay, because some schools won't even read anything when they see that number there. So unfortunately, like many applications are not fully considered because those programs focus heavily on GPAs. Not saying that all international nurses are going to have a lower GPA, but it's usually a challenge when we transfer things here. So that's, I think that's a loss, because we bring so much to the table too, right? A lot of experience. And I also think that it's important for schools to, and organizations in general, to make international students to feel welcome as well. I am the only internationally educated nurse, and I think that displaying them, it's showing to other students that they are welcome. They're going to be treated as we equally. But overall, I feel like it's been an amazing journey here. There's still going to be challenges that schools are going to have to overcome when it comes to that. But I feel like we are walking towards a better future now. I met some international students in Arizona and one of the events that I attended, and they came up to me, and it was just they talked to me about their concerns about the application process. The view of an international applicant upon the application process has to change as well, because we think that things need to be complicated when they might not need to be complicated. Like, to me, I've been a person who was like, oh, I'm gonna apply. If something happens like in a bad way, I'm gonna deal with that. If they say that I need to do this, then I'm gonna do it. But a lot of people hesitate when they apply because they think they need something else just because they are international applicants. But I feel like a lot of schools do a good job in displaying that they accept international applicants. Of course, there are a lot of limitation when it comes to visa, but you gotta be on the same page when just know that you're gonna have to have a permanent residency here in the U.S. or be a citizen. You cannot apply to school with a travel visa or with a H-1B visa, which is like just a work visa. You need to be a permanent resident or a citizen to apply to CRNA school. So just be on the same page and talk to your school. Reach out if you have any questions. I would just be mindful of the requirements. Go to that website and read. Oh, there's also something I want to tell is there is another process that you have to go through when you apply to a graduate school here in the US. You have to get your credentials evaluated by one company. So you have to pay a third-party company that will assess your transcript and convert your GPA. And this company will be the one sending your transcript to the schools. So if you apply through Nursing Cast, so if you apply to Nursing Cast, that institution will send your transcript to Nursing Cast, and then Nursing Cast will send everything to the schools. So just study the process, be mindful of all the steps that you need to take, and hope for the best. And yeah.
Just take a page out of Tar's book. That's what you need.
I'm gonna write a book by the end of this journey.
Oh my gosh, I would definitely buy it.
Not right now while I'm in school because it's been rough. So
it's still your story's still being written, but I can tell you, I'm sure these past 13 years that you have bbeen working towards this goal, I would definitely love to hear all more in depth about that journey. So
I'll be glad to share.
Yeah, me too. You have at least 2 buyers here. So
yeah, right.
Well, $20 will be okay. 10 for each book. I'll give you an autograph.
To just wrap us up, last thing we want. What's one last piece of advice that you want to give?
I just want to reinforce here, might be a little cliche, but I just want to reinforce that, you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe that what it's meant to be, will happen when you put in the work, right? Do not think that you're not enough. Just think that things will happen at the right time in the right place. Sometimes it might be not the time that you chose, but the time that God chose for you. And just keep trying. Always think about another way to reroute, like how you can reroute and navigate through the problems that are going to happen in life, because they are going to come. They are going to appear, and you will have to find a way to solve those problems. And sometimes it's not going to be the best way, but you will do your best. Just, know that, as I said, things will happen at the right time, at the right place, and you will be a CRNA if that's your goal. You will be an NP if that's your goal. Regardless, just try to be the best that you can be in every single aspect of your life. And, things are going to look way brighter your future is going to look way brighter if you put in the work with this mentality. But that's what I want to share with you. I'm really glad that I got to share this little part of my story, and just want to be a platform for internationally educated nurses and other nurses that have this dream of being a CRNA. Just know that you are an example for other people too, right? Some people look up to you, and you want to be this person that also inspire others and don't gatekeep things, because there's space for everybody, right?
So true.
There's space for everybody. So you will have your moment to shine, and be happy with other people's moments as well. So be ready to clap for others, because your moment is going to come. And when this moment arrives, you will have people to clap for you too. So just be happy with other people, success, because your success is also around the corner.
I love that.
I'm walking away from this conversation with a huge smile on my face. I can tell you
Me
that.
too.
I'm
Well,
happy. I'm happy that I got to share that with you guys. And
Thank
thank you.
you.
it was great.
Well, Tar, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your story with us. Journeys like yours remind us that success in nurse anesthesia isn't linear. It's built on persistence, perseverance, and people who believe in you. So if today's conversation added any value to your journey, share it with a colleague or someone who needs to hear it. Remember, nurse anesthesia is challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. Whether you're applying for school or you're in the thick of it, all of us here at Grade 1 View are here for you. Thank you for being a part of this community, and make sure to check us out on Instagram at Grade 1 View Podcast. Until next time.